white photographer suddenly noticed something. The black girl in front of him, so poor she was digging through leftovers, might have what it takes to become a top supermodel. Her features were sharp and striking. She had a tall, elegant figure, and there was a quiet strength about her. The more he looked at her, the more certain he became. So he stood up, walked over, and handed her his business card. But the girl thought he was a scammer. The moment the photographer turned away, she was about to throw the card away.
You might want to hold on to that, actually.
After hearing that, she somehow kept the card, and that ordinary little card would completely change her life. After work, Waris ate the food she had gathered and complained to her best friend while holding the card. But the moment her friend saw it, she nearly lost it.
Terry Donaldson. The Terry Donaldson.
What do you mean?
Who's only famous? The fashion photographer? He did Diana?
Her friend was just about to urge Waris to give it a try when a sharp pain suddenly hit her lower body. When she went to the hospital for an exam, even the doctor, who had seen everything, was shocked by what he saw. Waris was suffering both physically and mentally. She was born into a nomadic tribe in Somalia. There, once a girl turned 3, her mother would take her to a remote hill outside the village. After meeting the tribe's circumciser, the person would take out a tool that had already been prepared. Then the cutting would begin. It would not be undone until her wedding night by her husband himself. Only girls who went through the procedure and survived were considered pure women, compared with her 2 sisters, who died because of circumcision. Waris was both lucky and unlucky. By the age of 12, her father had sold her for 5 camels to a 60-year-old man. She was about to become his 4th wife, but Waris, who had already developed her own sense of self, refused to accept that fate. So the night before the wedding, she secretly ran away from the tribe. Her mother saw everything, but she said nothing. She could not decide her daughter's future. All she could do was pray for her in silence. A simple bundle, a pair of worn-out straw sandals. That was all Waris had when she ran toward freedom. 9 years later, she had ended up in London. Every day, she survived on scraps from trash cans. At night, she curled up in street corners to keep out the cold, until one day, she met a girl named Mary in a public restroom. Mary did not look down on her for being homeless. Instead, she took her to her rented room and let her stay there for a while. She also helped Waris find a job at a fast food restaurant. Waris returned the kindness. Every day, she kept the place neat and spotless. Little by little, the two became close friends. But one day, Waris accidentally walked in on Mary and her boyfriend lying together. Because she had been brainwashed since childhood by the beliefs surrounding circumcision, she could only feel shame. Mary thought she was making too much of it. To her, it should have been something beautiful.
Only a cut woman is a good woman.
Sorry, what cut?
Waris vaguely sensed something was wrong. She quickly stood up and took off her clothes. When Mary saw what was really going on, she was shocked and heartbroken. As a woman, she could completely understand her friend's pain, and Mary's reaction also made Waris realize something. Maybe not all women had gone through circumcision.
Is that why you take time in the bathroom?
That's what it is to be a woman.
No, I'm a woman. It's not like that for me.
Those words shattered Waris's beliefs in an instant, but the pain caused by circumcision did not go away. Every time her period came, it felt like a disaster. This time, with Mary's encouragement, she finally found the courage to go to the hospital. The doctor said sympathetically that the damage could not be reversed, but surgery could stop her from suffering like this. Because Waris's English was so poor, they brought in a Somali male nurse to translate. But this nurse twisted the doctor's words completely. The doctor had clearly said they would arrange surgery for her as soon as possible. Yet the Somali nurse warned Waris in their own language that what she was doing brought shame on her family. If Waris accepted treatment, it would mean she had betrayed her parents. She had betrayed her people and their traditions. The nurse's words awakened the shame she had been taught since childhood. She no longer had the courage to go through with the surgery, because this was not just a fight against physical pain. It was also a challenge to the values of her entire community. Later, while passing a clothing store on the street, her eyes met those of a woman wearing a burqa. At their core, they were actually the same. Waris thought back to how she had once survived by eating wild roots in the barren desert. Only she knew how hard that had been, and in that moment, she finally made up her mind to break the chains on her life. That would be the beginning of her transformation. After the surgery, she went to find the photographer Terry. When she arrived, Terry asked her only one question.
So you're really interested in being a model?
I am interested in better life.
As expected, Terry lived up to his reputation. At first, Waris was extremely uncomfortable in front of the camera, but he guided her with his words. Little by little, he brought out her emotions. Then he captured every powerful moment. Those photos became her ticket into the modeling world. Even among those glamorous girls, she looked completely out of place. Even when she was always assigned the last shoot, she never gave up. She faced everything with a positive attitude. Waris had never walked a runway before, so she practiced again and again in the hallway of her rented room. When she could not get her expression right in front of the camera, she just kept trying. That was how she charged into the fashion world, bold and fearless.
Boris, my darling, you are going to travel the globe. I have booked you into all the big shows. Everywhere!
With hard work and raw talent, Waris quickly became a favorite in the fashion world, but the road to success was never smooth. On her first trip abroad with the team for a fashion show, they discovered that her passport had already expired. She was temporarily held at customs. If the situation could not be handled properly, she would be sent back to her home country. Waris was unwilling to let everything end like this. After she first escaped the tribe, she had gone to live with her grandmother. Once her grandmother helped her get a passport, she introduced Waris to a job as a maid at the Somali embassy in the UK. She lived for years in a dark, damp basement. Then civil war broke out in Somalia. After the regime changed, finished, the embassy was forced to close. That was how she ended up stranded on the streets of London. Now the company had spent a huge sum to bail her out, but if she could not solve her temporary residence and work permit issues, she would still be deported. In the apartment she rented, a handyman who had long had feelings for Waris used the chance to confess. If she married him, even as a fake marriage, all her problems would be solved. Waris would rather die than go back to that tribe. So, despite her best friend's objections, she still chose to legally marry the handyman. At first, the two of them made 3 rules. They would only be a contract couple, but as time went on, the man was no longer satisfied with that. He kept finding excuses to harass her, and all she could do was endure it in silence. Things were not going well at work either. She still could not travel abroad for shows. To pay back that huge bail amount, she had no choice but to shoot some revealing artistic photos under the company's orders. The pressure from both life and work pushed Waris close to the breaking point. Fortunately, her best friend stayed with her through everything. That was what helped her keep going. And the turning point in life always seems to come when you least expect it. One day, a sudden letter finally broke the deadlock.
Indefinite leave to remain.
Her application had finally been approved. Waris immediately returned the wedding ring to the handyman. With no more worries holding her back, she could finally soar. When she stepped back onto the runway, her identity had transformed. She was no longer just a wandering survivor. She had become a free woman, one who held her own fate in her hands. Her desert scarf flew behind her like a battle flag. Under the flash of the cameras, she was elegant, confident, and calm. She was no longer the girl whose fate had been cruelly controlled by others. She was not just showing clothes. She was showing her soul. That runway walk, carrying the rhythm of raw life itself, quickly became a wild kind of beauty that left the fashion world breathless. And the body that had once been scarred by circumcision had now become a pillar of honor. From a Somali shepherd girl to an international supermodel, the bloom of this desert flower won the admiration of people everywhere. When fame and fortune came flooding in, Waris chose to turn toward a heavier mission at the height of her career. When she faced an interview with a fashion magazine, she did not tell some polished inspirational story. Instead, she chose to reopen her own wound. She exposed the brutal reality of female circumcision, a practice that had existed for more than 3,000 years. She showed it to the world, raw and unfiltered. By the time the reporter finished hearing her story, they were in tears. The interview instantly set off a storm of public attention. Waris was invited to speak at the United Nations headquarters. At that moment, she was no longer just a legendary supermodel who had walked out of the desert. She had become a sharp boomerang, smashing through the wall of indifference in modern civilization. She revealed that more than 100 million women around the world were still suffering because of circumcision. Some died from infection, some died in childbirth. And yet, in the minds of some ignorant people, circumcision was still seen as a symbol of purity and virtue. After hearing all this, some people felt grateful to have been born in open-minded countries. Others came to realize that ignorance is even more frightening than poverty. Just as Waris said, the camel at the end of the caravan sleeps beside the one in front. The suffering of every woman is closely tied to the progress of human civilization.
When I was a child, I said I do not want to be a woman. Why, when it is so painful and so unhappy? But now that I am grown, I am